if you guys have followed me on Instagram or YouTube or any of my sites for any length of time, and if you aren't, then you should. You probably know that I have these massive pots of topiaries. They're just standard topiaries, big ball on top on a straight stem. And these are in pots year round. They overwinter here, and I've had these in these same pots for, I'm gonna guess, 5 to 6 years. So you may then ask, well, how do they stay fed? How do you take care of them? How do you nurture them over time? So here is what I do. I consider it kind of a top dressing and a refreshing simultaneously. So you guys know that I keep sometimes stone or flagstone, usually gravel, on the surface of my pots. And by the way, these large potted evergreens, any of my large specimens in pots that overwinter, I think of them as furniture. They are just always present in my garden, and they contribute to the garden bones. So I'm going to take these out, and you'll notice that these stones and the gravel, that I've got pretty good clearance between the top of the pot and the surface of the soil, and that helps me when I water from splashing out soil and making a mess. Okay, so now on top I'm going to scrape off any gravel, and typically I just throw it in the flower beds because I've also got gravel in the foreground of my flower beds as kind of a mulch. And then I take one of these handy hoe scrapers. It's kind of a Japanese hand hoe, and I'm going to scrape off, being fairly delicate so I don't disturb the roots too much, about the top inch of soil or so. And then I'm going to kind of discard that. Okay, now I've got some good compost and some fresh soil. And this will be the equivalent of probably, if I measure right, about the same as the inch of soil that I removed. But this is all fresh, good topsoil. Or actually, it's a potting mix. Okay. Now in that, I'm going to add some Osmocote or a slow-release granular fertilizer or pelletized fertilizer. I could have mixed this in with the soil before I put it on the surface, or I could just do this and mix it now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these same pieces back in place. I call this, you've heard of patio pots. These are pot patios. It provides a little surface area on the top of these large pots that, if I so choose, I can set smaller pots on top of. I guess I could put a little statue of a bunny or something on here if I wanted to. Okay. And those kind of are flush with the soil. This one's a little bit thicker, so I'm going to press it down. And then I'm going to take some of my handy gravel I'm just going to fill it in again. And as I said 3,000 times, I do this because I like the way it looks. It keeps squirrels out and it keeps moisture in. The other thing that this refreshing and top dressing is going to do, it's going to really neaten up this pot because it had all sorts of redbud seed heads and some straggling leaves and twigs and stuff, and this will really freshen it up. And that will nourish this pot. I probably do this every other year. Now during the course of the growing season, I'll feed it organically with something. But every once in a while, I want to scrape that off and give it some fresh soil to keep this pot happy for the long term. Then I'm going to water this in really well and move on to the next pot.